Okay, Nick and Andy, biggest game in the Premier League season, Liverpool against Man City at Anfield this weekend. Let's preview it from a tactical point of view, look at the head-to-head battles, some of the themes, some of the things we know that we can expect to see when Klopp and Guardiola square off in their teams, but also some of the things that maybe haven't happened in the past, because these two, they have a few tricks up their sleeve from time to time just to try and get the edge over each other, but it's been very even between these two coaches and their contrasting styles of play over the years. So, Nick Mendola, what are the key areas that we should focus on, and where do you think this game, which is probably the biggest game of the Premier League season, where will it be won and lost, mate?
Beware the free man. That's what I would say. Beware the free runner. Beware the guy who is given only two teams in the Premier League. Only two teams, Arsenal and Man City, have had the luxury because of a Rodri, because of a Declan Rice, because of a Jorginho. They've had the luxury of letting a player just create, and that's your job. Mm-hmm. And we saw it with Martin Odegaard in a 3-1 win over Liverpool that Arsenal surprisingly at home controlled. And I think Kevin De Bruyne is on line for that today, rested at midweek. So it's Kevin De Bruyne. It's whatever you want to say. The matchup is Kevin De Bruyne against Liverpool, or it's how the 10 men of Man City go against Liverpool's 11, while Kevin, like Messi at Pep's previous spot, finds his place. And I just think that is a bit of a, we talk about bogey teams. I think that's a bogey tactic for a team like Liverpool to have to account for one player who's allowed to do whatever the heck he wants over 90 minutes.
Yeah, and I mean, he does have that habit, right, of popping up in the biggest moments when City have needed him. I'm thinking the run-in last season against Arsenal at home when he just took over the game and just assists, goals, his link up with Haaland. You're right. Yeah, exactly. Just cutting off that supply line to Haaland is going to be key, I think. And it's going to be a really big job for Endo, who I think will probably start in holding midfield to try and get hold of De Bruyne and Silva and probably Foden cutting inside into those kind of gaps there. And they're going to have to be so disciplined in defensive midfield, Liverpool, to stop Haaland getting the ball and De Bruyne and the others creating. Andy mentioned his name there, Haaland, a few times, the other end of the pitch against Van Dijk. That's an obvious huge battle, and Van Dijk's been absolutely monstrous for Liverpool. So good with all these injuries in recent months. What do you think of that Titanic clash at that end of the pitch?
Yeah, just a massive humanity going head to head between those two right there. The bodies and the size of those two and the physicality and the way that they play. They're not just big and lumbering guys. They are two of the, at their peak, that we'll say for Van Dijk, two of the quickest players on the field as well. And obviously he's transitioned into being a bit more of a control type player. Liverpool don't play the incredibly high line that they used to, which, by the way, Haaland would feast on, just making those runs in behind with Bernardo Silva, Kevin De Bruyne, Phil Foden playing those balls in behind. Liverpool, obviously, any team in the world wouldn't be able to keep up with Haaland in that situation. We've seen him, struggle a little bit. I mean, that chance that he missed against City, the PST WhatsApp groups just could not believe what had happened. That should have been 1.1 XG on that chance. That's over a goal. And to put that over, and obviously he came out and kind of, he poked at himself a little bit afterwards and accepts responsibility for that. But that matchup right there, him and Van Dijk, whoever it's going to be alongside Van Dijk, it almost doesn't matter, because you feel like he's going to draw the responsibility of dealing with Haaland, and Ibrahima Konate is going to have everybody else that kind of comes into that area right under the center forward. It's just, there's so many ways I think that City can get at you and generate chances from a very advantageous situation or from absolutely nothing. And I just look at Liverpool with the injuries that they've had in some of the key areas, midfield especially, and we see City picking up steam as the season goes on, and we see Liverpool just kind of trying to keep pace, I think, at this point of the season and get back up to speed. And it just feels like this game comes at the wrong time, I think, for Liverpool. Big picture, but also the tactical, kind of one-on-one, two-on-two matchups that are really going to decide this one.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. We expected City to be in this situation this time of the season. none of us, I think Liverpool themselves, expected themselves to be in this situation this season, given the rebuild and how badly it went last season. So, yeah, Konate's been excellent, by the way, in recent weeks. So I think, even if Haaland does try and, lose Van Dijk in some of these situations, Konate being there and his recovery speed, the way he reads the game, the blocks, the clearances, that's a formidable duo for Haaland to go up against there. And two guys, physical, who really can help keep him at bay, I think, for a little bit. But that might open gaps for some of those other City attackers we mentioned to kind of slip in and get him behind. But Van Dijk and Haaland, great man buns and ponytails as well, by the way. So maybe we can have a poll on who has the best hair. But Nick, in midfield, we talked about it. Rodri's been sensational, always is. Probably should be up there in terms of best players in the world conversation, but because he's a holding midfielder, doesn't usually happen. But I guess him maybe against Alexis McAllister if he's playing, or Soboslai, whoever's playing in a slightly more advanced role out of that midfield three for Liverpool. That's a really interesting battle, isn't it?
Yeah. I wondered, we have a post up this week and we talked about it in the group, who are it's a bigger group than ever that could be possible for Premier League player of the season.
True.
And the way that Rodri has found his finishing touch as well, how comfortable he is getting forward and taking a part of that, I think that has helped in a strange way mitigate the absence and the departure of Ilkay Gundogan. I don't know that any team in the world, short of Madrid's midfield, because of what they have with Kroos and two very energetic guys running off of them, can handle a rested and ready Rodri and Kevin De Bruyne. And I know I just mentioned the point about De Bruyne being kind of trolling around and being in his finding his spaces, but it's just such a brutal thing to expect. And I think we honestly, not that he'll start necessarily, but we've also seen a more adapted Kovacic in recent weeks. I think this midfield is Man City's to lose in this game. It's not a matter of Liverpool. Liverpool at its best, I don't think they clearly win the midfield unless Man City finds a way to have a bad day.
It's very true. And some of the other battles, obviously, Foden has been sensational. Was great in the Manchester derby. Him probably against, if he starts on the right against Andy Robertson, he's caused, Liverpool some problems in the past, scored some goals at Anfield, and just wonder maybe with Robertson just coming back from injury, is that going to be maybe, I don't even know if Joe Gomez starts left back. I'm not sure for a slightly more defensive approach.
And how important is Robertson getting forward into the attack for Liverpool as well and giving that width? Yeah. And when you're dealing with Foden in the form that he's in right now, how many opportunities is he going to actually have to do that?
Yeah, exactly. And then on the flip side of that, Salah starting probably on the right, we think, as usual, against Nathan Ake, is a left-sided centre-back for Man City. Salah's caused some problems, but Ake's played him well in certain games as well. So that's going to be pivotal for Liverpool. Like you said, Andy, if, the full-backs, if it's Conor Bradley playing right back for Liverpool, getting forward to support Salah down that flank, it's all going to really focus there. It'd be a lot to ask of Ake, and then Rodri if he's covering over. By the way, Rodri is massive. I saw him in the tunnel last weekend after the Manchester derby. Well over 6'3". That's his listed height. He is a big dude and so graceful on the ball. Great touch for a big guy, right? That's the saying. And he just does it all. So I'm really excited for a lot of these individual battles. When we talk about individual battles between the managers, we know that Klopp has given Guardiola more problems than any other manager in history when they've met over the years. Nick, do you think he's going to do anything differently, Pep? Because he's kind of done this in the past in big games, right? And this potentially could be the final time these two coaches meet as managers of Liverpool and Man City. So part of me feels like Pep doesn't have to overthink it now like he has in the past, and he's stopped doing that. But there's still the potential here for him to get caught up and just do something a bit wild.
Yeah, I think you can judge a little bit by who he rested at midweek, what he'd like to do. The idea that Silva and Kevin De Bruyne were just, eating extra noodles, getting ready for the weekend or whatever they do. That's what we did when I was growing up, speak spaghetti before the game, right? I don't know that we'll see anything other than tweaks and maybe even a plan that has to do with how Jurgen Klopp lines up, because that's the guy who gets you with switches. That's the guy who gets you with tweaks. So I'll be very interested there. I actually think Klopp has the better chance to surprise us. And I'll make an argument for that very quickly when we do predictions.
Yeah, I mean, Andy, I think like Man City has been working great with the 3-2-4-1 with John Stones being flexible and the hybrid. I just don't know if there's an argument for City to go to a back four, maybe a Kanji or Vardiol coming in with, he's done that in a few big games away at big teams this season. It hasn't worked out great, and maybe he's learned his lesson from that, Pep, by trying to be slightly pragmatic. It almost just encourages the opponents and to come out and have a go. And I don't think he wants to do that against Liverpool. So I feel like City are going to line up with the 3-2-4-1 and just go with what's been working great for most of this season and most of the last 12 months, right, since they switched to that system. But for Liverpool, I mean, Nick's right. Because of their injuries and the form, and we're not quite sure how up to speed some of the players are, not really sure who's going to line up in midfield, because even Gomez has been playing well in the holding midfield role. They might go with him for extra defensive cover. It's it's interesting, right? Because I can see Robertson and Bradley both starting the fullback, because you mentioned it, how important the fullbacks are to the way Liverpool play. But Nick, go ahead. Sorry.
No, sorry. I was going to say, I honestly think the key to this game for Liverpool is Nunez, and quietly, perhaps. I mean, how many players can you say since Boxing Day have been held off the score sheet once? And because he's missed so many glaring chances, especially earlier in the season. But I think when he starts, he's also a bit of a playmaker. He'll find guys. He's too young and raw to be a Harry Kane or an Ollie Watkins, but you can't tell me that over time he might not have that in his game as a facilitator. And with Salah back, I think how Darwin Nunez is used could be the X factor for Liverpool.
And Diaz as well. Those three as a trio just works really well. But Andy, anything to add on this tactical preview?
No, I think Liverpool will have to throw something tricky, unexpected, something that's going to give them, and Pep will adjust to it, by the way, but maybe for 5 or 10 or 15 minutes at some point during the game that gives Liverpool control of the game, or just a period where it's all Liverpool and they can relax at the back just a little bit, because I think they're going to be under a lot of pressure in this one. And for a team of Liverpool's stature and aspirations, that doesn't typically happen to them. And so it's control in these big games, I think, is more important than in most other games, because then you put a team into an unfamiliar position where they are suddenly on the back foot, and Liverpool are never on the back foot. And when they find themselves in that situation, how are they going to respond? That's kind of a tactical, kind of a narrative question right there. But I think that kind of ultimately for me is what this game comes down to.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, Dan's, Kumas, the young lads for Liverpool, is that the random factor they chuck on some of those kids late on again in a big game like this and just let them go with the vibes and the atmosphere and the emotion that they've been feeling? Almost, again, I said it before, Liverpool didn't expect to be in this situation. If they lose at home to Man City, they lose at home to Man City. There's a lot of pressure on Man City, especially given the fact that they're playing Arsenal coming up in their next Premier League game after this as well. So just that's a factor. That's all I'm saying. That's a factor in this. And the unpredictability of some of these young lads who've been coming on doing so well, that would be quite something to see them score a late goal against Man City at the Kop end for Liverpool. Nick, prediction time. What are you going with, mate?
Yep, I'm going 2-1 for Man City. Nunez scores late to give us that crazy finish that ends up going in City's favor.
Andy?
Yeah, 2-1 as well. City are inevitable.
Machine. I'm going with 2-2. I just think there's going to be a little bit more chaos than City and Guardiola would like. Klopp, Liverpool will thrive off that. But I'm just rooting for chaos generally. So that's my MO. So I hope we see that this weekend. But gents, really enjoyed that tactical preview of Liverpool-Man City. We've gone really in depth on that. And head over to Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com for preview, how to watch information, predicted lineups. We've got you covered with all the pre-game analysis for what is the biggest game of the Premier League season. We'll have you covered with all the in-game analysis, reaction, video highlights, and much more. It's going to be a huge one. Can't wait. Liverpool against City this weekend at Anfield.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. And for even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock. And be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you there.